Okay, folks. Good morning. Happy Independence Day for those of you in the U.S. And for those of you not in the United States, happy Thursday. It's just a regular old Thursday, which means you might be at work. So if I get any viewers this morning, it's probably going to be Americans that have the day off, people that have a normal schedule, or retired folks. But I figured we'd give it a shot either way. Got a long weekend here, and I think I'm going to try to put some of this stuff together. This place is a disaster. Still trying to move in. And it's funny because the rest of the house is not a disaster. The disaster is just here. But we got the stuff from my daughter's moved out from college is here. It'll be going back in about 5 weeks or so. But it's a long weekend, so maybe we're going to take that on. But this area is okay. So as we talked about it last night, what I wanted to do this morning, and I really didn't want to go out there and do that after I had already showered and everything. Not that it's that hot right now, especially since it's still dark. It's probably still, we're going to get probably about 20 minutes till sunrise. But we wanted to take our woodland scenic trees that we doctored up. We want to seal these so that the stuff that we did is not wasted. And we want to seal up our buildings as well. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to use the old airbrush, and we'll put it back together as I take it apart when I clean it, and use the Vallejo matte varnish, and probably going to go through a lot of that, I would imagine. So, thin coats shouldn't be an issue. It's all acrylic. Let's hop to it. And what we're going to do is, like I said, some people don't like to airbrush this stuff. Most airbrush, I'm not an airbrush expert. I never will be an airbrush expert. I've just only been doing it for a couple of years now. And but I will share with one of the issues they don't tell you is you can airbrush this stuff, but you got to buy another needle. The needle the airbrush comes with is not big enough to hold some of these thicker mixtures. Don't buy into it. You got to thin it with airbrush thinner. You can do that, but if you do something like the Vallejo primer, this is meant to be used straight out of the bottle. So if you can't use it straight out of the bottle, then you need to go to another alternative, which in my case was I just happened upon, let's try using a bigger needle. And it's worked okay for me. I generally do not have to stop what I'm doing and clean the whole airbrush out, which is what was happening before. Let's check this nozzle for cleanliness. It was clean, and what I do is I just take the needle and just make sure the needle goes all the way through. Normally I would look through, I have a mirror, a window behind me, but we're just going to look into the light, and we see that it goes all the way through. So that should be good enough. We'll put the needle back in. Trying to get in the habit of putting the needle in backwards through the front. It avoids other issues. And let's put the nozzle on. It's been a while since I've airbrushed, actually. Since I sealed these buildings. Okay. It's in place. I'm going to test it before we do anything else. And see if we can't wake the wife up this morning. I am in the garage, and she says, no, I don't really hear it out there. Well, we'll find out. some ladies hear things that haven't even been, some things that haven't even been said. So. We'll let that build up some pressure. We're going to run it pretty high. We're going to run it somewhere between 40 and 50. Let's make sure all the chat is up, which I didn't do yesterday, now that I think about it. I just don't have a producer. I get all excited about doing this part, not necessarily the video part. Probably mount my Dremel this weekend too. Got one of them Dremels that dangle off the ceiling, or can dangle off the ceiling. Let's bump it up a little bit to about 50. Okay. I'm gonna test this with some. Oh, I gotta make some more of this stuff. The cleaner. Jug that I spray things into. Seems operational. We're going to use this little basket here to put the things as I clear coat them as we go. So I don't want to use too much of the stuff because it could set in there. So we'll use it in little spurts and we'll clean in between. When we run out of this stuff, I've got some water I can run through it. It's not ideal, but I'm not really prepared to make more of this stuff right this moment. So we're going to start with the trees first. And as I mentioned yesterday, I'm not really worried about necessarily sealing the foliage part. It's mainly the trunk that's basically a plastic or a soft plastic trunk armature. And I've dry brushed it so that it's more than just one color on it. And we don't want that to come off because then I have to do it again, you know. So I'm going to actually grab it by the foliage and spray, and that should be good enough. I think it'll be good enough. Right, so let's get this, mix this stuff up, and then we'll do the buildings. Scum coated on this stuff. There we go. It's rare that you have a bottle you don't have to do any kind of maintenance on. There's always some overflow or something you should be. You could clean up. All right. First one. This shouldn't take that long. The buildings will take a lot longer to do. Got about 32 of these things. foliage side down. Not that I don't think it's gonna make a big difference. There's not enough of this stuff on here. Just give it another little coat. So that wears out instead of the dry brushing you did. Let there be light. Daybreak coming. Daybreak a coming. Curious to see actually how much real estate these 32 trees take up. 'Cause I can only put them so close. You think, oh, it's not that much. Well, you got to spread them out because you can't really touch each other, so to speak. I hope it's enough for the first scenario because this is all I got. Been sitting on these things for about 30 years. Haven't done anything useful with them. See how they turn out. I don't think I'll be buying more of these. They're rather expensive. They're rather expensive to begin with. Route, and now they've just only gone up in price. So I'd imagine like 4 of them are $8 or 10 or something like that. That's just silly to pay that kind of money. Can't really get them in a store, so I think we'll probably see what's available on Amazon. If they come in and there's no hope for them, then we'll just send them back. That's what I like about Amazon. It's easy to return things. In case the vendor doesn't do their part and sells you garbage. Kind of hard to tell exactly what you're buying sometimes. So at least being able to return it for free for no additional cost is one worry you don't have to think about. Little tree. Doing a reach around behind me with my left hand is not exactly one of my best skills. And hopefully this will keep some of the wear and tear off the trunk. That's the part we're going to be grabbing. That's the part that's going to get damaged more, worn out. wondering what the hell I'm doing on a Wednesday morning or Thursday morning off, it's the 4th of freaking July. It's one of the few holidays we actually get off. And tomorrow off too, thankfully. I'd be annoying to go back for one day. Okay, so while that's drying, it's time to do the buildings. Okay, so this should not take that long at all. Just gonna move this off to the side. And what's going to be our guinea pig? Well, it makes sense that this would be the first one I'm going to do because it's the one that I've had for 30 freaking years. So let's make sure we got enough of this in here. I'm going to grab up on the inside. I'm actually not going to worry about sealing the inside. How about that? Ooh! And that way I got somewhere to hold on to it. I'm going to take care to get rid of my watch. I don't want clear coat on it. Not that it's priceless heirloom or anything, but I just felt something shift. Let's take that forward before it falls on the ground and chips up. And we're out. Now we're going to go through this a lot. We're doing a relatively large area, but we don't have that many buildings to do. Oh, easy there, easy. Getting excited. Now, one thing that I mentioned, I actually didn't know this, is that when you use craft paint, the part that's really, really flat is the filler. And craft paint, also known as that really cheap paint you buy in stores, about $1 a big container of it. It's mostly filler. It has not a lot of pigment compared to other paint, which means it makes it really cheap. Well, the nice thing about that is because it has a lot of filler, they tend to be flatter than other things. So more than anything else, these buildings pretty much are fairly flat. They don't really need this to take the dull off of it as much as just to keep this paint from getting rubbed off by handling. So we're just going to give this a covering of this, and then we're going to move to the other building. And no, I'm not wearing a mask. I've got a fan blowing this way. And, you know, we should be good. I always like pointing that out because there's some folks that don't mind their own business. Do as the Frenchman says, mind your own business. All right, I'm just going to hold this like this. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's all like, oh, you gotta worry about the masks, and they're doing freaking their mainline and heroin on the side. The reason I went to their brush was to get rid of those toxic spray things. Yeah, you definitely want to do it in a well-ventilated area, but just gonna go over it. We're probably gonna go over it again. underneath there. Perfect. A sip of some coffee. Okay, the third building, there's 3 that have a logo on them. I'm going to have to take the logo off before I do anything with that. So here's the separate floor. Let's go ahead and knock that out. And I'm using an acrylic, so I don't have to worry about using some kind of paint that's going to ruin what I'm doing. Oh, I forgot to paint that little piece of plaster. Oh, and I almost made a big mistake. You know what? I'm gonna spray over that. I'm gonna spray over that sign. I'm gonna spray over that logo. There's a sign there that's printed. I'm just gonna go over it. Let's see what happens. Instead of taking it off and putting it back on. That's it, just a little clear coat on it. Might be okay. We're experimenting. We've never done this before. And honestly, it's turning out incredible, considering I've never done this before. And what I mean by that is buildings. It's not that much different. Okay, and we're going to finish up by, I'm going to hold this on the inside here, and I'm going to spray that staircase area there. Now the only thing I don't like about these buildings, the only thing I don't like about them so far is that you have these staircases. Yeah, this didn't run. This is really light. It's not like it'd be a pain to fix this anyways if the paint came off, but you know, there's no point in undoing stuff you've done. And one of my favorite sayings is, just because you don't value my time doesn't mean I don't value my time. Butchery. Spray cans, which I'm not going to because it smells so darn bad. I gotta worry about it lifting the paint that I put on here, having to start over. We don't need to start over, we need to keep moving on. Factory. This has one floor or two? Just one. Let's go ahead and just do the floor first. Factory, which is a drugstore amongst other things. signs are just stuff I found on the internet and printed them. And they look okay. I would have been perfectly happy painting my own signs. Actually, it's probably the part I would have enjoyed the most. However, not doing that saves me tens of hours. I really like the way, you guys probably can't tell, the little broken bricks turned out there. So we've got a shitload of bricks that are supposed to get here, unfortunately, on Monday, which is like almost like the worst day you could get here. You know, long weekend, it would have been nice to get the bricks in, but we're probably going to have to doctor them up so they don't all look uniform. I do have a couple different mixes, but I am prepared to airbrush stuff. Been using a staccato tree. They're not going to be everywhere. But they need to look like they came off these buildings. And the boulangerie. Boulangerie, what's that stand for? Is that underwear? Yeah, underwear made of bread. This is the building that I talked about. It actually had a third floor, a small little third floor. I didn't realize when I bought it was incomplete, but that's why it was so cheap. If I really want to create another floor, I could just make one out of balsa, basswood, something like that. I just don't want to get bogged down in those details at this moment. This first scenario we're going to use these buildings in doesn't even have any infantry in it. The last one? It is. So this spray probably, unlike most other things that I do, did not change the look of this much because they're already pretty darn flat. Listen, I'm not going to spray the inside. The inside's not going to really get that much handling. And if it does, I'll go in there and fix her up. Just get these buildings the heck out of here. Get out of my work area and we'll take a look. Very little clear coat. Hand sanitizer will take it right off. Anything? Let's load them up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's start with that. I don't know if this is going to make any difference, but if there's any shiny parts of the trees, that'll eliminate it. Not that having some gloss part of trees would be totally out of place, but I'd see if I can get this to show what we've got here. They're just gonna attach to these washers, and those will go underneath the plane area, underneath the mat. Let's grab a little tree, put it on the same one. And that way when you put your trees on the battlefield, you don't have that stupid looking base. Yeah. Maybe it's not a big deal for some of you, but it is for me. It's an eyesore. Let's towards the outside and move that way. Okay. Next. And maybe it does make a difference. Maybe it... Every time I've sealed something, it looks better. I'm not going to put this spray scenic stuff and add more of the dusty stuff on there. I'm good with just painting. Let's grab another little one. Through a lot of this stuff, but this stuff's really controllable. I don't have to worry about a spray can stinking up the whole work area, or it's somehow reacting in a strange way. Why are we dripping out of there? And then undoing everything that I've done. I want to say it looks better. You know, if it didn't look better sealed, it'd be the one thing that didn't look better sealed. Everything else I've done has either looked the same or significantly better. You don't need to put the trees, the washers, any closer than this. Because the trees really can't be any closer than that to each other, or they're in each other's way. And remember, this is not a exact physical representation of exactly where each tree is. That would be extremely anal retentive. Not if you're like in a forest area like that. That's a whole lot of work for something that's just not that important. You know, sorry this isn't the most exciting video ever, but hey, it's got to be done. So, I do these videos as basically entertainment and keeping myself on track. If anybody else finds any value in this, it's amazing and a freebie. So, I'm glad that some people sometimes do, but there's no guarantee. Ready for a refill on that. I'm gonna have to order that before we get too carried away. And again, another item that's not available in the stores around here. I would much rather hand paint these like I did with kind of a wet dry brushing than try to airbrush this stuff. This is not. I really don't want to have to paint the trunks. I dry brush the trunks, but having to put the brown color on the trunk, that's just going to take a lot of extra time. It can be done. It's not like I can't do it. I'd rather spend my time doing something else. We'll sub that out to the manufacturer. More. Okay, I think it can fit 3. Then we'll have to start putting them somewhere else. I don't have that many left. I maybe have 6 more washers worth or something like that. So, I know I've talked to you guys about kind of the meat and potatoes of how these rules work. You have an action for each crew member on a tank. This particular first scenario has 4 British vehicles and I think 5 German ones. And that's 9 vehicles times 5. That's 45 chits just for That's 45 chits. That's 45 crew members for everybody in that scenario, times 2 on average. So now we got 90 chits. You got to go through all those 4 turns up. Well, the game's only 4 turns. I think it's 4 turns. It's a 4-turn long game. Plus, you have 10 movement chips for each one, for each side, where all the vehicles move on of one side. So that's 110 just for that. I bought a pack of 120. So I need to order some more, which reminds me, that's in my cart. I need to, if I'm gonna, I'm putting all of my effort into this. If I can't do this, putting this much kind of effort, if I can't get this up off the ground, well then, I guess there was no hope. This is why we couldn't have continued doing all the DVA stuff we were doing and do this. Ran out of juice. And I don't use this for the figures. Well, I don't use these for the white metal figures. If I did plastic figures, I'd have to use this. Does not like that. Other material. Lacquer and soft plastic figures don't really mix well together. Exactly, 2 more washers. 2 more washers worth. We're going through this stuff like it's going out of style. That's all she wrote. Got some of that left over, might as well rinse it off. All right. not Myers soap, but that would probably work. Actually, it probably is a little bit of residue. That probably wouldn't hurt. Scum from the clear coat. Now, should be able just to take some of this Purell. Yep, comes right off. Let's bring this needle in just a little bit so I can poke myself. Yep, that's all it takes.